Hey everyone, so today's video is going to be just a general discussion on Void Tower. I'm hoping to give you, a little bit of insight on how to build some teams, what you should look for and how to progress in Void Tower. The reason why I want to talk about this is, one, I actually had a community post on YouTube, asking people if they struggle with any floors on Void Tower so I can show them. And there were a couple, comments where they have specific stages, so I will go over those, but I also want to talk about team composition and what you should be looking for whenever you're building your champions, because I think that goes a long way. Showing someone how to beat a floor with specific champions is always, it can always be counterproductive because they might not have the champions. So I will talk about general team composition. And then the second reason why I'm doing this is the rewards from Void Tower actually have been really good. They've made some updates. The actual towers themselves, the rewards are solid. They're nice little rewards to do every month. It's really nice that the devs have this in here. The normal tower is pretty good. The hard tower has some really nice rewards as well, with this Soul Arcana potion for legendaries being top prize, which is a pretty valuable item nowadays, especially where most heroes need A5 to be super good. Every one of those potions counts. And then on top of that, they added these Void Tower bosses that give a lot of meal coupons, a lot of shards. They give 3 legendary books, which is absolutely amazing. And then they give one of those summons for an LD character. So you definitely want to be trying to clear at least Void Tower normal and hard each month. If you're, a mid to, well, I'd say mid-game player. End-game players should be doing Mythic, although it is kind of gated right now, from to broken Light and Dark legendaries and then a specific epic, which we'll talk about. But with that being said, let's just talk about some team compositions, okay? One of the things that you should definitely do is ask the community first. I do have a Discord channel now, so I will link that below. I'll have it as the first comment of the video. So go join that. We have a lot of really helpful players, knowledgeable players in that Discord, along with, the general Discord of Awaken Chaos Era. There's a lot of really friendly, nice people that will help you try and progress. So that's the first thing. Second thing, look at these strategies and formation tab here. A lot of people will have some interesting picks in here that you didn't know was possible, and you might have all the heroes. Some people will use broken LDs or whatever because they have them, and sure, they should. But if you don't have those specific heroes, what we're going to talk about is just general team composition. So there's a couple of things that you need to look for. The first one is, do you have a hero that can boost the damage of your damage dealers? Okay? If you look at a lot of Void Tower teams, you're going to see heroes like Flarence. Flarence is a great support hero that not only keeps your team healthy by restoring health, but she also lets your damage dealers do way more damage than they could without her, because she puts this increased damage taken up on all of the enemy heroes, and she grants each of your heroes a bonus attack with their basic ability for 2 turns. This is one of the most busted ultimate skills in the game, and people who don't have Flarence, I'm sure you're hating this part of the video, but I am just bringing her up as an example because there are other heroes that can help, maybe on a much lower scale, but they can definitely do it. So Flarence is obviously your number 1 pick. She will help Void Tower hard clears 100%. But if you don't have her, other options that are actually free are someone like Brand. Brand you can get in the challenge tab down here. If you complete 250 of these, you get a free Brand. And he is just a great support hero. He gives your team some shield, to help them live, especially through the higher stages. He does do this kind of counter attack whenever an ally's attacked. This is really good for Dark Nyx stages, where you have to get down his like life counter. Whenever he goes to 0, he gets 4 lives, and each time you hit him, it takes a life away. So Bran's really good for those types of stages. He does have a taunt on his basic ability, which is definitely underrated. This is a form of crowd control. If you have a really dangerous specific enemy that you don't want to deal with, he can come in there and kind of control them. And his ultimate ability gives attack up 2, which should not be, understated how impactful that can be. So he gives some additional damage multipliers, to your damage dealers, as well as giving you some sustain the defense up. This also can count as some damage multiplier as well, too, if you're using a hero that scales off of defense, like Nero. So you have Brand, you have Florence, you have, people like Shane. Shane is a really nice option as well. As people know, his trait is just absolutely nuts with increasing damage output. But he also puts attack down, on opposing heroes to have them deal less damage, and he can boost up one of your biggest damage dealers as well. So support heroes that increase damage to your entire team or make the opposing team weaker. Okay, so Florence did the increased damage taken. Bran did the opposite, where he just boosts your team. You have heroes kind of like Jonathan in the epic section that does a little bit of Shane and a little bit of Florence, where he puts an AoE defense down and attack down on the enemies, so he'll increase your damage and then also decrease the damage taken. He is a great option as well as somebody that can enhance your team's damage output, while also being a support to keep them healthy. So that is the first role that you're looking for. The second role that you're looking for is someone that does some form of crowd control, right? Or also known as CC. You have a ton of options here. People like Galeno, I think, is really underrated. He's very fast. He has some pretty nice base speed. And he does a really great ultimate ability where he puts all of the enemy's skills on cooldown, essentially. He puts silence on them, and he puts silence 2 for 2 turns on somebody if he's booked or something like that. He also puts an attack down 2 on the most dangerous attacker that the enemy has. The reason why I recommend someone like Galeno is, even though his ultimate ability does a form of crowd control, if you have an AoE damage dealer that is fairly fast, he's easier to build in a focus set, right? Or a Rebel set. And what Rebel does is it has the ability to stun, an enemy, 20% chance. So if you put a stun set on Galeno with enough focus, which I think you should aim for around 100 to 120 focus, I think is the right amount. It might scale the higher up you go, but I think 100 to 120 is a nice starting point. So not only do you have the silence for Galeno, but you also have a chance to stun all enemies with his ultimate ability. You're looking for that in your crowd control heroes. There's specific heroes that have crowd control abilities already built in to their kits. People that have stun, frozen, sleep, taunt, or silence. Those are all forms of crowd control. I'm going to ignore all of the light and dark characters for now. But anybody that has an AoE ability, so Ashlyn, right? Ashlyn has a 1-person stun where she'll stun the primary target for two turns, which is absolutely nuts because you can loop this. So you can make sure that one person never gets a turn, which is really strong. But on top of that, she does do this AoE. So she has an AoE on both of her ultimates, whether it's the dark side or the light. So she's another nice target for stun, and she can be a bit of a damage dealer. but she also gives defense up 2 to herself and someone with the highest attack on your team. Another great option for a crowd control hero. Ralph, if you have him, he does an AoE taunt while also taking really good hits because he puts himself into this really big shield. He is a great CC champion. He becomes the prime target. There's a possibility that he can taunt someone for 2 turns, and it's an AoE, so you can also put him in a stun set. You either nuke the enemies down, or you make sure that they don't really ever get a turn that's meaningful. Outside of those 2 things, right? Your support champions that increase your damage or weaken the enemy, and then your crowd control champions, anybody that really has an AoE ability or some kind of crowd control already in their kit, which again is that stun, silence, freeze, taunt, all of those are options. Outside of that, you need to be looking for damage dealers. And if you have that one support and the one crowd control champion, you should be able to bring in one of these 3, although I recommend 2 of these champions to really help clear Void Tower hard. Okay? The first one is Baron. Baron is just absolutely amazing. She gives herself her own damage increasing abilities in her trait. And then on her AoE ability, she actually ignores defense, where if you know anything about these games, the higher you scale in difficulty of these, player versus environment contents, defense and health really scale high. So if you have someone that kind of ignores that mechanic, it's really strong. And then on top of that, she does like a bonus attack with her passive when there's 4 or more enemies. So she gets like 2 AoE hits and they just hurt real bad. So she is option number 1 in my opinion. I think she's one of the strongest heroes for that content. The other one is Hitachi. He gives himself attack up anytime he kills somebody. He also resets his ultimate ability, which is an AoE damage dealing ability. Just a really, really strong character. A little bit behind Baron, I would say. And then the other one is Nathalia. She only needs an Ascension 2 to be super strong, whereas the other ones need Ascension 5, so do keep that in mind. But she is a really great water damage dealer. The things that Hitachi and Baron really struggle with is fire heroes. But these should be your 2 main damage dealers, whether it's a combination of Nathalia and Baron or Hitachi and Baron. Those 2 champions should be able to clear most of the floors. So if you have any issues with, strong Earth champions, you do have some options in the fire area, whether it's legendary or epic. So Rosalie is a great single target damage dealer for sure. You can use somebody like Alicia to give the rest of your team, an additional damage boost by ignoring 25% of people's defenses. You have people like Geralt, who I think most people have. He is a nice, solid damage dealer for wood, although he is probably one of the weaker ones, but he will still work. Bella is a great option, as well as Gavin. And then from the epic side, I think Trista is actually pretty underrated. But you get my point. You should have 2 main damage dealers, 1 support hero, and then 1 crowd control hero. So that is how you should be building your teams. Now, I'm going to go into the individual levels of Void Tower, and we'll walk through, how we're building our team with the speeds, what you need to look for, and we'll go from there. So let's jump over to level 50 of hard. Okay guys, so here is the floor 50 team. So you have, two earth heroes, and then you have 1 fire and 1 water. So Baron does really well against everything that isn't fire. She should, do a lot of damage to the earth heroes, and obviously do crazy damage to the water hero. And then Nathalia is in there to clean up the rest. The reason why I have Baron going before Nathalia is because you can use Baron's normal attack and still do a lot of damage, and then Nathalia can use her ultimate because if she kills somebody, she ends up being able to refresh her ultimate ability, so you can use it every round. Now, the rest of my team here is Brand, as I mentioned before. He also has a really nice leader skill to give your team a little bit more defense. And then for Jonathan, we're using Jonathan as our option to decrease the power of the enemy team. We're using Brand to increase our power. And on top of that, I do have Jonathan in a Rebel set to hopefully get some stuns here and there. So the minimum speed that you need for your team is 150. This might scale the higher up you go, but I think for waves, it's mostly 150. But let's just keep track, whenever we go up to the higher stages, maybe in the 60 to 90 range, we'll see if that changes. But we're going to try and take this team all the way up, okay? So let's just jump into stage 50 here. And what you want to do, guys, is if you get stuck on a stage, it's okay to manual it, you don't need to auto everything. I know that it's definitely more convenient to auto, but we're just going to manual this one. So this is where Baron is nice to go in front of Nathalia, right? Because she only needs to do her basic here to still do a lot of damage to this entire team and probably clear the wave herself, okay? It also gives her an attack up on her basic ability, which gives her more power going into the next round, which is really nice. So here you see that these heroes actually outspeed. So Baron right now is 157 speed, and Nathalia is 150. So maybe if you want to be extra safe, maybe plan for 160 speed. But here, Baron is doing the same thing, but she didn't kill the fire hero. But as I said before, Nathalia actually resets this cooldown if she kills somebody, and she's just got a weak affinity left, and she clears that wave, and now her ultimate is back up. So the two spells that I ended up using for our squad here, and as you see, like this whole wave is quicker. So maybe we need to increase our speed a little bit, as it goes up. But the last thing you want to do is, just go speed over your damage output. So you have to try and find a nice balance. But we'll talk about that a little bit here later. So I did bring the stun spell because you definitely want to stun the most threatening target. Brand does not have the highest focus in our team though. Jonathan does. So we're just going to use Brand's ultimate to give our team additional damage, and we will use Jonathan to stun Baron, and then we'll use his ultimate to put attack down and defense down on the entire team here, and hopefully get a stun from Rebel. Let's see if we get lucky here. So sadly no stuns there, so they will get a full attack, but because we have defense up on our team, it looks like we're gonna be okay here. So now we get to go, and this is where we get to use our ultimate of Baron, where she's gonna be ignoring that defense. So I brought the Rage Aura spell as well to just give some extra boost to attack and see if we can, slice through this team. So something like that. Now, I obviously have strong gear. I know a lot of people will be watching this saying that, oh, well, I don't have this type of gear. I can't one-shot. That's why you have Nathalia in there. She's in there to bring that additional damage. It's the team composition that I want you to pay attention to, okay? This is a free hero, and then you have a bunch of epics. It's all about team composition. Then, if you don't have the gear, if you get hard stuck, there might be some things that you can do to cheese it, or there might be some things where you need to go back to dungeons and you need to farm a little bit. You need to get some better gear. Maybe you're not ready to beat Void Tower. But anyway, so that's Void Tower 50. We're going to move on to Void Tower 60. Like I said, I'm just going to be using this same team. Alright guys, so we're going to move on to floor 60 here, and then we're going to call it a day. So like I said, same team for all floors there. I will tell you, though, we did update the speeds, so we'll talk about that here in a second, and then we'll talk about how to take down Light Nick here. So this is a type of team where you have to prioritize certain heroes, okay? This Blackhorn is probably going to be your biggest issue, I would say. It can turn into a problem if CC moves on to Light Nick for some people, but Jonathan and Brand should do a really good job at keeping you healthy while Light Nick has his invincibility run, through the whole turn. So let's go through this and see what we come up with here. So because you have 3 waves, you can actually ultimate on the first wave, because by the time you come back around, you'll have all of these skills for the final wave. So Jonathan will do this, and then Baron will come in, and then Nathalia will clean up. Okay, so for this wave, okay, we're going to do similar thing that we did before. We're going to ult with Brand, because we really need the Baron to take out the Blackhorn. So we're going to use the stun on CC, so whenever Nathalia goes, she's actually going to do damage to her. So here's Baron. Baron's going to do damage to the CC as well. So because of the attack down and defense down, and we didn't even Rage Aura there, we were able to clear the Blackhorn. Now, again, like if your Baron isn't as strong as mine, then that's why you have Nathalia in there to clean up the Blackhorn. Baron and Nathalia should be able to kill those heroes. Now, this is the other thing that I was talking about is, Jonathan and Brand are there to help you withstand the Light Nick hits. And I know if you guys don't have a strong Baron, if you don't have a Brand, if you don't have Jonathan, like all of these things are understandable, which is why I wanted to talk about team composition. So I'm just trying to give you an understanding of how's the best way to build a team. You want to decrease the enemy's health and their power, increase your own power, and then 2 damage dealers to really deal with whatever they throw at you. So guys, these are the speeds. I told you I wanted to talk about that. I think maybe 165 speed and up is probably where you want to be. But that's all I have. Just some tips and tricks. I'm going to do a independent breakdown of floor 90 and floor 94. Probably do those in the same video, but that's going to be on a separate video. So thanks for watching. I hope this helped. If you have any questions, again, join the Discord, ask in the comments below, ask the community, all of those nice things. Until then, I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.